it's very important to be aware of what you're not good at. What I've done in my company is I have people around me that are excellent at the things that I'm not very good at. This is all about being flexible. It's not just about having the flexibility for the clients and for staff. It's being flexible to the environment that you're in.
Welcome back to The Change Officer, a mind-opening show where we introduce you to the brilliant humans who are shaping the business landscape of the Middle East. Today, I have a chance to host a woman who's been in Dubai for 15 years. She started her professional career as a woman in a quite man-dominated industry, the tech industry. She worked as a marketing director for companies like Nokia, Citrix, and Arrow before she decided she had enough of a corporate world. This whole experience was enough for her to create a network of successful people and start her entrepreneurial journey. In 2009, she started working as a consultant, crafting marketing plans for companies like Cisco, Adobe, DataCard, just to name a few. Taking into account the amazing results she has achieved, she started getting more work than hours in a day. That's when she founded FLUME, a marketing agency that exceeds her clients' expectations. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guest, founder and managing director at FLUME Marketing, Sarah Bentley. Welcome to The Change Officer, Sarah.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. I was looking forward to our chat after a very inspiring introduction conversation that we had. I really admire your journey. I loved your enthusiasm and motivation and entrepreneurial spirit, and I think it's going to be an amazing episode. We'll be talking more about you. We'll be talking about FLUME Marketing. We'll be talking a bit more about the industry. But how I'd like to open up the conversation and just set up the ground for later topics is explore a bit more about the period of your life before you dived into FLUME Marketing, which is now your baby. You've been a marketing director for various successful companies, and that's what actually helped you to prove that you're bringing results, right? How did you get there?
How did I get to the point where I was getting results?
Yep, and being a marketing director for all these big names.
I think that, for me as a person, I'm very results orientated. So I always kind of think, is this campaign going to actually bring results to the company? And that kind of set the scene for me in terms of when I opened my own agency. So when I came here 15 years ago, and I was obviously trying to find agencies that I could work with for the role that I was in, was that they were not able to deliver that aspect. So they could say, right, we can run this campaign. And I said, but what's this campaign going to bring me? And it wasn't a result necessarily. They would not kind of come to the point where they'd say, well, it's going to give you X amount of leads or X amount of awareness. And I think especially today, that's what companies want. Marketing's changed. Back when I was a young girl in marketing, it was all about how to spend money, get advertising out there. There was no mention of generating pipeline of business. And today we're in a very, very different place because marketing managers and directors or departments, they're targeted to bring in money. They're at the top of the funnel in terms of the sales funnel. And so for me, it was very important that my agency could deliver real results. So I have a real sales side to my character. And that's, I think, has made FLUME successful because every campaign that we do, has to bring in a result. And in some services that we deliver, we do guarantee that result as well.
Yeah. I'm curious always to explore, the sequence of events in individuals' life that shaped you. So you said you are result oriented. You have that sales feeling, and you're bridging the two all the time and trying to deliver actual results. But before you figured all of those things out, before you became who you are, what do you think are the things in your life that shaped you, that motivated you, that made you who you are today?
I think I was always ambitious as a child. So I was the child in the family that was given my pocket money and would go out and spend it, and always wanted to be older than I was, always wanted more than I had. And that's just how I am. And I didn't actually go to university. And in fact,
you're one of those that
I
made
am one
it without.
Of those. Yes, but not that I think it's a good idea not to go to university at all, because obviously it has caused me issues as well. But it wasn't my story. So as a child, I struggled at school. Later in life, I was diagnosed with ADD. So, I have a problem concentrating, trying to sit here without moving. And so school was difficult for me, like sitting in a classroom environment and just trying to listen was something that wasn't very possible. And I just was just bored, I just wanted to do my own thing. And so my parents, offered me to go to university, but I just wanted to get out to work. And that's ultimately what I did. I got my first job when I was 19 and just worked my way up from there.
Wow, that's very inspiring. Do you think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why you made it, although that's a big word, made it so early in your career?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
19-year-old, you started working for yourself.
I mean, I can give you an example. I
love examples.
I'd gone to college from school and was doing like a business administration course. Mm-hmm. And it was coming to the summer months and everyone was leaving and getting jobs in pubs and cleaning jobs, whatever it would take to get them some money over the summer. And I thought, well, there's not a lot of money in that. So I walked into Office Angels, which was a temp agency, a very famous temp agency in the UK. And I had learnt to type in my college course. And I walked in there and I said, I'd like a temp position, over the summer. And they said, well, have you got any experience? Yes. Technically I had from working in college. And they said, well, okay, I had to do a typing test, which I passed, and they put me in a contract with a technology company, just as an administrator to support the administrational manager there. And she had to leave, and they said to me, look, you're doing a great job, would you like to take her role? And I said, well, how much is it? And they offered me like a lot more than my friends were earning. And that summer I was earning double what my friends were earning. And that's just, how I very sort of driven ambitiously. So I did take that job. I never went back to do my second year of college. Wow. And that's how I ended up in the technology industry.
That's a roller coaster effect that we talked about.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
More in some other episodes. But yeah, it sounds like, okay, the journey that you picked is definitely not an easy one. No. Working, starting, being almost independent. I assume from so early. What's the most difficult part of your life?
From a career perspective,
yes.
I would say that I have. So I always used to say, put me in front of somebody and I'll get the job. Give me an interview and I'll get the job. But the problem was getting the interview, because as I got a little bit older, companies like Microsoft would not even look at your CV unless you had a degree. And then later on, I came to Dubai 15 years ago where they would accept my college certificate. But as the years kind of went past, I realized that actually if I wanted to stay in the industry and get interviews with companies like Microsoft or Oracle, that I needed a degree. And it was at that point that I did my degree. So I was in my 30s before I actually did my marketing degree.
Never too late.
And actually, I really enjoyed doing that. I didn't think that I would because, academia is not my passion, but actually I learned a lot from doing that. But that was probably the biggest struggle, I would say, is that, not having that background, not having those qualifications, It meant I had to work much harder in interviews to get the job.
But do you think that in your case, obviously turned out almost as a good thing?
It did.
What was the lesson that you learned from that experience?
When I've got my own children now, and I would advocate university for them, of course, for the experience that university brings, but also from the discipline that learning in that environment brings as well. So I would say, some of those earlier jobs that I did, I was a bit rough around the edges because I didn't have that background. But I covered that up with, the assets that I have. But that's not, I wouldn't say that I was a normal case, and I don't think that that's how people should necessarily go about getting a career for themselves.
Yeah. All right, but it turned out to be a very good thing for you, so I'm glad for that. You talked while we were having our initial conversation. We talked about approach to projects being very organized, planning, and you talked about putting time into planning out things. Are you an advocate of planning a lot, planning just enough? Not planning at all?
No, you know what? I think that there has to be a balance. And I think it's very important to be aware of what you're not good at as well as what you are good at. And I think people in small businesses sometimes fail because they don't want to see, or they can't see the things that they're perhaps not so good at. Me, I'm very aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not, and I'm not afraid to say that. So what I've done in my company is I have people around me that are excellent at the things that I'm not very good at. So I'm not a details person, but my director is. So together we make a very good team. So in terms of your question about planning, yes, it's very important to plan but again, for me, I always look at the end result. What's the end result, and work backwards from that. So if a client says to me, it really doesn't matter, what service they're talking about, I always say to them, what do you want to get out of this? And then we work backwards from that. So what do we need in order to get that client that result? And that does take planning. But on the other hand, particularly these days where things move so quickly, life, you can't spend all your time planning. You've got to kind of bite the bullet and get in there. So I think you have to strike a balance.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think that's a good answer as well. Over planning also is not as good, especially in such a rapidly changing environment in which we're living today. So switching gears and talking a bit more about FLUME Marketing, which is currently your baby company that you built from scratch. Introduce us to the story that I loved. How did you come up at all with the idea to start a company?
I mean, again, it's been a very organic thing.
Yeah.
So what happened was I had my children they're quite close in age, and I wanted to get back to work. I have to work. That's just how I am. But the problem is that particularly here at the time, they wanted, for the types of roles that I would go to, they wanted you, in the office 12 hours a day. There were always a lot of travel involved, which I couldn't do that, with young children. Yeah. So I decided I couldn't go back into the corporate world, and I started to do a lot of freelancing and consulting. And that got very, very busy for me around 2015. And that's when I thought, okay, actually, I could turn this into a business now. But I didn't at the time have huge aspirations. I just wanted to go with the flow to see where it would end up. But we were I made it into a company, and that first year was incredibly successful for me. So whereas I just thought I would be consulting under a company name, we were taking on people, we were getting more clients, more business in Europe as well as the Middle East. Then I got my office, and it just grew organically, really. And that's what's happened over the last 6 years.
I love the part when we were initially talked about all of this and your experience, how companies started inviting you because they knew that you're doing a great job, started inviting you just to do a part-time support for them.
Yes.
Which eventually led to FLUME.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So obviously coming from the UK, and before I came to Dubai, I had international job roles. So my network of people in the technology industry was quite big, and people knew that I was here. And it's still the same today. You know, global companies who may have an office here, or they may have just a sales manager here, but they have budget that they need to spend on marketing. They would come to me because they'd worked with me before, or that they knew that I'd been working for one of their friends, and say, look, can I give you this money and can you spend it for me? Because, you know, we're having problems in the region. Yeah, yes, please. We're having problems in the region trying to find agencies or people that can help us, and we need that trusted person. So that's how it initially started.
And you know, usually they would go to an agency, right? How did they approach you individually as a that was more like a contractor?
Yeah, I mean, they probably, you know, to be honest, in the first few years, we didn't do any business development. It was literally just my network reaching out to me. Yeah. That was it.
And you said that you achieved, when you started FLUME Marketing, you achieved amazing results in year one, and then you started scaling. What do you think? Big question. There's a lot of small details here, but like, what do you think are some of the major influencers of that growth?
I think so. One of the clients that we took on, we were actually just covering for the marketing manager position whilst they were in the middle of hiring for that position. And they loved what we were doing so much. They said, this seems to work. So they actually put that headcount on freeze and asked us to continue doing that. And then they had some issues in Europe with staffing. And I got a phone call to say, can you replicate what you're doing in the Middle East elsewhere? So I just said yes.
Do you always say yes when someone asks you?
Yeah,
can you
and
do
then
it?
worry about how we do it later. Absolutely, yeah, and just do whatever it takes to get there. So that's what we did, and we ended up with 4 or 5 consultants around Europe as well, doing the same thing that we were doing in the Middle East. And actually, they're still a client today, and some of the original people are still working in those positions.
But sounds like you experienced a relatively fast growth in the number of accounts, the number of campaigns that you were managing, and geographically you grew. How did you manage that type of growth, you know, staffing, delivering, managing the clients?
So for me, you know, one of the things that I always wanted, and it was very important to me, and something that I didn't like when I was in a corporate, you know, position, in marketing position, was that you would be tied to a retainer, you know, that you would be tied to a 6-month campaign, and then things change. And I, you know, very aware that in these days, you know, you have to be ready to change very, very quickly. So the FLUME model has been built in a very flexible way. So how we do that is we keep our overheads very low, and we actually don't employ that many full-time staff on visas with contracts. We have contractors who we can, you know, flex up or flex down, and that enables me to be able to flex up and flex down clients. So if a client says to me, you know, we have X amount of dollars to spend with you every quarter for the rest of this year, I'm not going to assume that that's going to stay in my forecast, because very, very quickly, the way that things are at the moment, that can change. And they can phone me up and say, we've just had our budget cut by 70%. If I'd hired staff to look after that project, we would be in trouble, because we would then be paying staff that we wouldn't be able to afford to, because obviously we've just lost that client, or the client's reduced the project. So the majority of people that work in FLUME are contractors. That said, you wouldn't necessarily feel like they were a contractor. It's just that they're, you know, that's the agreement between us, is contractual. But, you know, if I look at our staffing, we still work with the same people and have done for a long time. But it does provide that flexibility. And I think that's part of our success.
To find people like that who are willing to engage in that kind of relationship?
Not so much these days, to be honest. I think, you know, particularly this year, a lot of people have lost their jobs. or they need the flexibility, particularly parents who are having to homeschool. They can't afford to go out to the office every day. So this type of role works very well for them. And that's something I'm very passionate about, because when I had my children, I felt I had sort of been tossed to the side penalized for having children. And, when I was going out and picking my children up from school and having chats in the playground with other parents, I realized the amount of talent there was in the playgrounds, not just, mums, but dads too, who would love to work, but couldn't work a 9 to 5. Some of them had really successful roles in very great companies, but they were just, wasted. And so for me, one of the things that I really advocate and love about FLUME is that we do, it enables parents to get back to work. We have a dad as well whose wife is the main breadwinner. So he works for us, and, he had a very, very successful career in a telecoms company before he had children, but now needs to balance it. So it works really well for him. So I'm very proud of that.
Awesome. That's a good story. All right. So you said flexibility allows you to survive some tough moments as well, and to grow. You've been covering different geographies, a lot of different clients, and you've been delivering results. Based on that, you're growing, and most of the growth is fueled by referrals, right, and your network. How do you manage to deliver results continuously?
Yep. And that's the hard thing, isn't it? Because if we look at the campaigns that we run, if we know that we can guarantee a result, then we will guarantee that result. If we're not sure, then we say that. We're very honest with our clients. Sometimes clients will want something very specific, and we will advise them, well, we can do that, but we can't guarantee that you will get the results that you want, and we will suggest ways in which they can. So the services that we deliver, have been built in order to deliver results. So, working with other partners. So we have many, many partners that we work with who are experts in their field, or we take things in-house and do it ourselves. But, it's about finding the right people, the right companies, and building a service that is going to deliver. And that isn't easy. And yes, there are times when you're like pulling your hair out and you're thinking, this isn't going to work, And again, though, I'm very honest with my clients. So if we're running a campaign and for whatever reason it starts to become unsuccessful, and there could be many reasons for that. It could be environmental. It could be that their product isn't necessarily doing too well in the region, and I can see that we're going to struggle. I would never continue to do that campaign. I would always be honest with them and say, look, the way we're going at the moment, I don't believe that this campaign is going to deliver the results that we've said it will. So, but provide them with a solution. So if we do X, Y, and Z and change it up a little bit, then I think we will be, we'll be good to go. And that's how we work as well. And I think the clients really appreciate that, the honesty as well. And that sort of forms part of the trust in us, that they have.
But you know what? You're talking about it as it's an easy thing to pull off. Sounds like you just pulled it off, your things. There is a lot of entrepreneurs and founders out there who have the vision, and if they could do everything in the company, probably everything would be great, but they cannot clone themselves. You have an idea, you know how to take care of your clients, you know how to set up the expectations, you know how to deliver, but then you start growing and then you start hiring. How do you manage to transfer that culture to the people that you're working with?
Yeah, and I did
maintain it.
Yes, I did struggle with that in the beginning, because I think, in the first couple of years, people were buying into me rather than into the company. My experience, how I was delivering or pitching a proposal, and we needed to move away from that in order to grow. And I believe that you have to have the willingness to delegate some of your position to trusted people. And believe me, it's not that every single person that's worked in FLUME has been trustworthy and it's worked out. Of course not. Humans are humans, and it doesn't always work out how you think it should. But yeah, I mean, it's tough, but you can't rely on people, but you also have to.
Yeah.
You really do have to. If you keep it all for yourself, you can never ever grow. And so I'm just very lucky that I have a few people around me who I really trust, and they may not necessarily work for FLUME. So I believe in the power of partnerships. So my agency on its own is small. We're a small business, really. But if you put us collectively with all our partners, then actually we're a force to be reckoned with. So partnerships are really, really important to me. And, how we work those partnerships is, I'll help you if you help me. Other partnerships, we have, proper contracts between us. And that's how we can kind of expand outwards. So we don't do everything in-house, and it's not all about me. There are people in FLUME that could run FLUME without me now. And that was also, I think, really, really important. If I get hit by a bus, what happens to FLUME?
Can you give some
Yeah, probably not a brilliant analogy.
If you go on a vacation.
Yes, if I go on a vacation and don't come back.
Does it happen that you go on vacations?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, not in the last year, but yes, absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's extremely important. You said partners, and I think that's definitely an approach that over the previous, couple of years kind of accelerated, and there is more these joint ventures and partnership type of projects than before. But the more contractors you have, the more partners you have, the less control you have at the end of the day, and it's difficult to stay committed to results and to be 100% sure that you are going to deliver. But there is one good story that you told me about the event that took place where you had a task to gather a group of people, and you were not really sure that one of the partners, I believe, will actually pull it off, and you decided to step in and take care of the job. Yeah,
and I think that's, I'm always kind of on the fringe and ready to sort of pounce in and help if it's needed. And again, it takes time to build up trust in partnerships. But I also believe, that people are the partnerships that I have and the working relationships that I have, are people that if we got into trouble or if something went wrong, they would step in to help me. I believe that being authentic, really being supportive and not stabbing people in the back on your way up is hugely important to your success. So I am very lucky, if I'm running an event and I don't know, the stand builder lets me down, perhaps it's the client stand builder, that they wanted us to use their stand builder and not our own. I know that I've got a number of people that I can go to and say, can you help me out here? I know it's last minute, but we need this event to be successful. So I can always kind of pull it back. It's like having an army of people around you that you can rely on. And I honestly think that's a massive part of our success. Also is not relying on one partner. So as I've said, not all the services that we have are, run in-house by FLUME. If you have only one partner for one specific service and they let you down or they go on a vacation, then you're going to be in trouble, So you kind of need to make sure that you're covered in all angles. That makes sense. Talking about the industry that you're in, one of the industries that you're in, which is events. It goes without saying about the last year and then the events industry that didn't really go as people would expect. How did you adjust it? So initially when FLUME, when we first started out with FLUME, it was, the main service was resourcing. So it was putting a marketing manager in a company that didn't have a marketing department, or offering an extra pair of hands for a company that had a department but needed help. But I knew that, just doing that, selling time and people was not necessarily going to keep us from being successful as we move forward. So the services that we deliver have grown organically. It wasn't like I sat down and said, I love events, therefore I'm going to do events. It was really what the clients wanted to do in the region. And then we were fulfilling that, we were executing on that. And one of the things, pre-COVID was events, and I still think today that events are important. People need to see people. So I would say that from the services side of the business, pre-COVID, 40-50% of the revenue was coming from events. And was very seasonal as well. And, when COVID hit, and, I kind of very early on was projecting what I think was going to happen, and I didn't sit on my laurels with it.
You saw it coming?
Yeah, exactly. So I remember going on a holiday to Sri Lanka in February last year. And it was like, should we just take masks? And but there weren't any cases. I think it was around the time that, that we started to get a couple of cases here. And I thought, if I look at what's happening in China, worst case scenario, the situation. And I pulled the team together and I said, events it's going to disappear. So we need to quickly change tact.
What was the time when you called that?
Probably March.
Oh, that was early.
Very early. Yeah, and I'm so pleased that I did that. And again, this is all about being flexible. It's not just about having the flexibility for the clients and for staff. It's being flexible to the environment that you're in. And I knew that we wouldn't, if we were just relying on income from the events, we were not going to survive. So, I sat the team down and I said, right, imagine events are off the table. What are we going to tell clients? How do we think that they should be spending their money to still get those results? And my feeling was that everything would go digital. And we had a digital, we run digital services anyway. But I said, we need to swap everything out to digital. But how do we do digital marketing and still get the types of results we were getting from events? Because obviously face-to-face meetings with people in events would generate opportunities for our clients. So we needed to make sure that any digital marketing that we did was still providing those opportunities. And that's when we had been doing account-based marketing. But we decided that was the way to go, digital account-based marketing. And that's what we've done. And we actually ended on having quite a good year as a result of that. And, account-based marketing is a strong service for us now. And, if I look at this quarter this year, obviously there still aren't any physical events. I no doubt they'll come back, but I don't think that they will necessarily be as they were before. So I think it's about, change management is really, really important when you're running a business like ours.
March 2020, probably you had a full calendar of the things that you were supposed to do with your clients. And did you go to them and told them that, look guys, this is not going to happen? Or did they believe you? I mean, it's not as easy to
they will always, I'm an advisor, because obviously they are, not all of them, but many of them are trusting me to advise them in terms of what's happening in the region. I am their marketing advisor, so they will ask me, I still get the questions, when do you think physical events will be back on? And so, they were saying, well, I paid for this event that's happening in April. Do you think this is going to happen? And I said, in all honesty, in my opinion, I don't think so. And, I really think that, you need to change tact. And some of them did and some of them didn't. And that's fine as well. We'll support them no matter what. But yes, they do ask me and my advice a lot.
I think that a lot of people in your place wouldn't go necessarily down that path, because that potentially could lead to them saying, okay, just call off the events and reduce the budget, and we're going to lay low this year.
Yep.
Right? So I think that's very,
and
fair from your side. I think that's one of the reasons why you're gaining more trust with your clients. Because
for me, it's about being realistic. So I could have, I suppose one tact would be, well, let's just go for it anyway and hope that event comes off. But then I knew it wouldn't, and that they wouldn't get anything from it. So when we did, when we had that conversation about changing budgets, swapping budgets around, swapping campaigns around, I was also very, very aware that budgets would be cut. I still have that awareness. I still think we're more so in that situation now. This pandemic is going to cause a lot of financial issues. It already is across the globe, and I think that will continue. So I also had a strong awareness that we may not hit our number, that budgets would be reduced, that my own staffing would have to be reduced. And again, and I had that conversation with my finance director and said, look, can we trim any more fat off of our operating costs for this year? And that's what we did as well. So I was very, very prepared. always project ahead and was very, very prepared. So we were prepared for the worst, and that worst didn't happen for us. So that was good. And we managed to look after the clients, and we still got them, results, even with diminishing budgets.
Great job. You told me as well that you tend to offer services that nobody else. Nobody else is a big word again. I need to stop.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that.
So you tend to offer services before others even know that they exist, maybe, or they're just picking up.
Yeah, again, I think it's really important to, be ahead of the curve in terms of the trends that are coming out of other countries and companies as well, and making sure that we're at the forefront. So never be comfortable. If we're running a campaign that's working really successfully, it might not be successful in 3 months because somebody else is going to do something different.
It's so nice to be comfortable. How?
But yeah, I think that it's not necessarily that we offer new services before anyone else, but I think again it comes back to that when we do offer that service, we go that extra mile to make sure that the results speak for themselves. And again, I won't be happy if I was doing a campaign that failed. I would give the client the money back. I wouldn't be able to rest at night. That's just how I am, and they know that. So it's in my own best interest to make sure that those campaigns are working. Otherwise, I'm going to be giving the money back.
I think that's good.
And we've never had to do that, by the way.
Marketing, events, communications, media. It's a big industry. There's a lot of services that you can offer. And I'm sure that you've been tempted over the whole, previous how many years now since you started, and even before, you've been tempted to offer almost everything. That how do you pick the services that you are going to offer, that you're not going to offer? Do you narrow on one, or do you go wider? What's your tactic?
So, in terms of the services that we offer, it's very much what is in demand and also what we know we can deliver. So I've looked at services before and I thought, that would be a lovely service for us to run. And I've looked into it and I've looked at, is it possible for us to run that service? Could we do it? Do we have the expertise? If it's not going to be cost effective to my business, or if I think I'm going to be mediocre at it, I'm not going to do it. So, we're delivering services that we absolutely know we're going to be the best at. And that the clients want. Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Talking about the region, you work globally. So I think you are a good person as well to give an opinion on the regional, the state of the region when it comes to your industry. Are clients here willing to go extreme to explore new stuff, or they're more cautious?
I wouldn't say that they were more cautious. I think that they are, ready to try new things, particularly now. I think that again, they will take our regional advice. What works in the region, what is working. But this is what I love about this region is an amazing platform to try new things as well. It's not rigid. There are ways around everything here, and you can, get things done really well, really quickly, very cost effectively. That's one of the reasons I certainly like working here, is that.
Yeah. So having that in mind, what do you think, if you want to give them a bit of a tip for future, what do you think are services that are going to pick up in the coming months or let's say a year?
Again, I think it's incredibly important that you have your eye on the result that you want to achieve.
Okay.
And I still see that people don't do that. They get it in their head that they really want to do an advertising campaign, but they don't really know why. And for me, it's about drawing out what do you want to get from this, and what budget do you have to spend to get that result. Because, again, somebody can put together a massive proposal that you might not be able to afford anyway. And believe me, these days there isn't that much money, and you can still do great marketing on a small budget. It's just you come at it from different ways. So I think my top tip would be come at everything with a very open mind, and have people around you that you can trust to give you solid advice who have been in the region. So particularly here, When I look at other agencies that are incredibly successful in Europe, as an example, they try to break this region and they can't penetrate the market because they don't have the awareness of how things work here. And that old adage, it is different here. It is different here.
Yeah,
it really is different.
Yeah.
And one of the battles that I've always had with clients or co-workers over the last 15 years is trying to corporate departments who have the responsibility of rolling out global campaigns, yes, they have an awareness that, okay, in France, you'll have to have it, translated into French. But here, it just, everything works differently. And if you're going to be rigid, then perhaps that campaign won't work. So I do think it's having that real open mind and being ready to be flexible and trusting people that have the experience to know what works and what doesn't.
And I think that's an amazing opportunity for any business, keeping an eye on global trends and then using the opportunity of a very specific localization that you can do in the market.
Yeah.
Sarah, thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you.
I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm learning a lot from you, and I hope that I'll have more chances to learn. I hope that you guys picked up some good ideas, inspirations, insights that Sarah will at least a little bit influence your 2021 to become a better year. Thanks for staying with us until the end of this episode. If you like what we're doing with the Change Officer, please like and subscribe. This will mean a lot for us, and stay tuned until the next episode coming out on Monday. Sarah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye.